It's a fantastic book. And it's so much more than just another self-help title. It's
Yeah.
really, it's a system. Meurisse wrote it because he saw this common problem in our, super connected, super reactive world.
Right.
Far too many of us feel like we're just at the mercy of our emotions.
Hi.
You're dreading that unexpected call or that critical comment on social media, and you see these feelings as just chaos you have to put up with.
Oh, absolutely. And think about that feel. You've probably felt it, that sharp, like uninvited spike of anger or that heavy blanket of worry that just settles on you. And suddenly your feelings are in the driver's seat. And you're stuck in the passenger seat, totally helpless against what's happening inside your own head.
Exactly. And Meurisse really pushes back against the idea that this is just how life is. He says people have this idea that emotion is some kind of malfunction, something you have to suppress or just ignore.
Right. Just bottle it up.
And that's precisely why this book is so important. Its mission, and our mission for you today, is to give you a really clear, actionable roadmap. Because in this age of constant triggers and, information overload,
Yeah.
mastering your feelings is key.
And I think we need to stress that word mastery. It's not elimination.
Absolutely not. It's not about getting rid of emotions.
No, we're not talking about some kind of forced, toxic positivity where you just slap a smile on everything. This is about learning to be thoughtful, to be intentional instead of just reacting.
It's about creating that moment of choice.
Yes, that's it. So when you get that really difficult email or you face a personal setback, instead of spiraling, you have the tools inside you to just pause, process, and then respond with some composure.
That shift from chaos to composure is really the core promise of this book. And before we get into the lessons, we have to start with the central idea. The whole thing is built on it.
Okay, let's unpack it because it's so powerful but also so simple. The core idea is this. Emotions are not your enemies, they are messages.
They're just data.
Exactly, they're just data. And the moment you understand how they work, what their signals really mean, and how to respond, you stop being a victim of your feelings. You go from being driven by them to consciously directing them.
And that reframing changes everything.
Yeah.
It means that even the most difficult emotion, like deep frustration or jealousy, isn't a punishment. It's not character flaw.
Right.
It's just a piece of information that's pointing you towards something that needs to change. Meurisse argues that the intensity of these feelings often comes from our misunderstanding of them, our thought patterns, our physical state, not just the event itself.
So why is this skill so critical right now? Why is mastering this so foundational?
Because, honestly, unmanaged emotions are corrosive. They just eat away at everything. They sabotage your productivity because you're tired from making decisions or you procrastinate.
Or you make impulsive mistakes.
Exactly. They sabotage relationships by causing fights or just creating distance.
Nice.
And I think this is the worst part. They erode your self-belief because you start to think that a temporary feeling like feeling overwhelmed is who you are.
I am overwhelmed.
Right. So emotional intelligence or mastery isn't some soft skill. It's fundamental for modern life. It gives you freedom, power, and clarity.
Okay, so that journey to clarity, it starts with a pretty big mindset shift, which
Yeah.
brings us right to Meurisse's first key lesson.
Right. The first step.
Recognizing what your emotions actually are.
Yeah, and this is where he lays the foundation. Emotions are temporary, transient states that carry information. They are not, and this is the key, they are not your identity.
And that sounds simple, but it's probably the hardest hurdle to get over, right? Because our language constantly fuses the two together.
It really does. We internalize it without even thinking. We say things like, I am angry, or I am sad.
Yes.
And when you use that phrase, I am, you're taking a state that might last, 20 minutes? And you're making it a permanent feature of who you are. It becomes part of your identity, and then it feels impossible to change.
So what's the practical fix? How do we start to separate that?
Well, his advice is really direct. You have to deliberately shift your language. So instead of that automatic, I am angry, you train yourself to first observe and then state, I feel anger.
Okay.
Or even more detached, I notice that anger is present. It's a subtle change, but it creates this immediate cognitive space between you and the emotion.
You're acknowledging it's a visitor.
Exactly. It's a visitor. You can understand its trigger.
Yeah.
And this is everything. You get that split second you need to choose how you're going to respond. The power is all in that pause.
And he backs this up with biology, which I find really helpful. It kind of helps you forgive yourself for those automatic reactions. He talks about how the brain, specifically the amygdala, is wired for survival.
Not for happiness.
Right, not for modern social niceties. It's for survival. And that explains why we have these quick spikes of fear when a car cuts us off, or that immediate irritation when someone says no to us. It's just this ancient protective instinct kicking in.
That survival wiring is so fascinating. The amygdala is like the brain's smoke detector. It prioritizes speed over accuracy.
Okay.
So, back in the day, that saved us from a saber-toothed tiger. But today, when a demanding email lands in your inbox or a coworker interrupts you, the amygdala processes that social threat with the same urgency as a physical threat.
So that's why the reaction can feel so disproportionate.
Completely. That irritation you feel from the coworker, your brain registers it as a violation of your safety or your status, and it triggers a survival response. Fight. So you snap at them, or flight, you just withdraw and stew on it.
So let's use the book's example. You're in a meeting, a coworker cuts you off, you feel that intense irritation. The default response is to lash out or just sit there fuming.
Right. The survival instinct takes over.
But using this framework, you pause and you note internally, okay, I feel irritated. Why? Because I want respect. And my survival brain just registered that as a boundary violation.
And that little bit of clarity, it changes everything. It moves you past the explosion.
Yeah.
You can then respond thoughtfully later instead of just reacting in the heat of the moment.
This is where that analogy he uses comes in, the one about the car.
Oh, yeah, the dashboard lights. It's the perfect analogy.
It really is. Emotions are like the dashboard lights in your car. They're just signals. They're telling you something needs attention. Maybe your oil is low. Maybe a tire needs air.
But you wouldn't identify with the light, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't stand there having a crisis yelling, I am the low fuel light.
No, you just observe the information, the signal, and then as the driver, you take action. You're the one in control, not the warning light.
And that's why he suggests a really practical exercise. Tonight, just think about a strong emotion you felt recently. And instead of just thinking, I was so upset, reframe it. Use that template. I felt the emotion when the trigger happened because I believed this underlying thing.
That shift from being the victim to being an investigator, it's huge.
It creates that space.
Yeah.
You stop asking, why does this keep happening to me? And you start asking, okay, what is this data trying to tell me about my needs right now?
And that idea of separating yourself from the emotion, it leads right into another one of his key lessons, lesson 6, which is that you are the observer and the director.
Exactly. He places this later in the book, but it's a direct reinforcement of that first lesson. It's this liberating idea that, okay, emotions may visit, they might even be overwhelming, but you are not the emotion itself.
Detachment is the key word there. When you really internalize that I feel fear is completely different from I am fear, you start being hijacked by the mood.
You become intentional instead of just reactive, even when the feeling is really, really intense.
So let's take a real-world example. Say you make a big mistake at work and you feel this profound sense of shame.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
The default pattern is that the mistake becomes proof that you are fundamentally flawed. I am a failure. And that just leads to wallowing.
Or hiding, yeah. But if you apply this observer role, you pause, and you can say, okay, I notice shame is here. Why? Because I have this belief that I must be perfect, and I just failed to meet that standard.
And that observation, that simple act, it allows you to move toward correction or learning or even self-compassion instead of just getting stuck in that shame loop.
The analogy he uses for this one is the sky and the weather.
Right. You are the sky, and your emotions are just the passing weather. You know, clouds, storms, sunshine. The sky hosts the weather, but it doesn't become the weather. It's just the container for it.
Okay, but let me challenge that for a second, because that sounds very peaceful and zen when we're just sitting here talking about it.
Sure.
But what about when the weather feels like a hurricane? When you're in a full-blown panic attack and objective observation feels completely impossible?
That's a great question, because in a crisis, just observing feels too passive. And Meurisse addresses this. He says that in those intense moments, the observer needs an anchor.
An anchor. Yeah.
And that anchor is usually your body, because when the amygdala is fully fired up, your logical brain basically shuts down. You can't think your way out of it.
Right.
So instead of trying to outthink the emotion, you use your body to anchor the observer. This could be a tiny action, like just feeling your feet on the floor or taking one single deep breath. The whole point is to create the smallest possible gap between the stimulus and your reaction.
So the observer isn't passive at all. He uses a deliberate action to get its footing back.
Exactly. So to practice this, he says, when a strong feeling comes up, just pause. Before you do anything, consciously say to yourself, I am aware I feel, whatever. And then ask the deeper question. What rule am I operating under right now that let this emotion come up?
That's the director part. Shifting from the external event to the internal rule, that's where you take control.
Okay, so recognizing we're the observer is step one, but step two is where this becomes really practical. It's about understanding what creates the emotional cycle in the first place.
Yeah, because emotions are never just random.
No. And this brings us to lesson two, which is about understanding what actually impacts your emotions. And he introduces this idea of a triad.
Right, the triad. This completely blows up the simple stimulus response model. Meurisse says emotions are rarely just caused by an external event. They're almost always an interplay between three things: your thoughts and interpretations, your body state or physiology, and your environment.
It's a whole system. And if you ignore any one of those, you're basically setting yourself up to fail. He has this great analogy: trying to fix the temperature in your house while leaving all the windows open.
That's perfect. You're just fighting the symptoms without controlling the inputs. If you want to change the taste of the soup, as he says, you have to change the ingredients you're putting in.
So let's break down those ingredients. The first one, physiology, is the one I think most people ignore.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And it's often the fastest way to make a change. So physiology includes things like your sleep, your posture, and your breathing.
Okay.
These are all directly linked to your nervous system. When you're stressed, your fight or flight system kicks in, your breathing gets shallow, you get tense. But you can reverse engineer that by deliberately doing something like box breathing. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4. That simple act signals to your brain that the threat is gone no matter what your thoughts are doing.
And posture does the same thing, right?
Absolutely. Standing up straight literally changes your hormonal profile. Slouching tells your brain you're defeated or hiding.
Then there's the second input, mental input.
Right. This is the data stream you're consuming. What you read, who you follow online, the quality of your own self-talk. If you start your day by doom scrolling for 30 minutes, you've already programmed yourself for anxiety before you've even had breakfast.
And the third one is environment.
Yeah. And this isn't just your physical space, although clutter is a huge emotional drain. It's also your social environment.
The people around you.
Exactly. Toxic, critical, or just constantly dramatic people are emotional energy vampires.
Yeah.
Meurisse is really clear on this. Sometimes emotional mastery means setting very strong boundaries.
Or just walking away.
And you can see how these all link together. He gives this chain reaction example.
Yeah.
You wake up tired from poor sleep. That's physiology. You immediately check a negative social media feed, mental input. You then slump over your desk, more physiology. And the result, generalized anxiety.
But when you see it as a chain, you realize it's a fixable pattern. It's not just who you are.
It's an input problem, not an identity problem.
So the application for you listening is to do a quick morning audit. How did you sleep? What's the first thing you looked at on your phone? What's your posture like right now? Just start to notice the links.
So once you understand the inputs, the next step is action. It's about deliberately interrupting the negative cycles that those inputs create.
Right. And he describes negativity as this thought interpretation repetition loop. It's a vicious circle.
He uses this analogy of a record player with a stuck needle. It just scratches the same painful groove over and over. To hear a new song, you have to physically lift the needle and put it somewhere else.
I love that. And he has a model for why we get stuck in that groove, right? The interpretation, identification, repetition model.
Yes. Let's break that down because it's so insightful. First is interpretation. A neutral event happens, and you assign a negative meaning to it. So you send an important email, and you don't hear back for a day.
The negative interpretation is catastrophizing. They hate it. I'm going to get fired.
Exactly. Then comes the second step, identification. You take that negative thought and you fuse it with your identity. They haven't replied because I am a failure.
It goes from being about the email to being about you.
Right. And the third step is repetition. You just replay that thought loop over and over. You ruminate, you vent, and that repetition builds this strong neural pathway for that negative emotion until it's a habit.
So if you can break any link in that chain,
you disrupt the whole emotion. And because these cycles happen so fast, you need really quick, practical interrupt strategies.
Okay, so what does that actually look like? How do we interrupt it in the moment?
Well, he gives 3 main categories of interrupts, and they work because they directly change one of the inputs from the triad we just talked about.
Okay.
First is movement, which is a physiology shift. If you're sitting down and spiraling, you literally just stand up and walk around for 60 seconds.
Second, a change of environment.
Right. Physically go to a different room, or step outside, or even just open a window. Change your sensory input.
And third is shifting your thoughts, a mental shift.
Yeah, deliberately forcing a new thought in. You could focus intensely on a different task or even challenge the negative thought by coming up with 3 reasons why it might not be true.
So, a real-life example. You find yourself getting jealous about a friend's success. Instead of brooding, you kick in your interrupt plan. You pause, you go for a brisk walk to change your body state.
And then you could change your thought by genuinely, sincerely congratulating them. You replace the jealousy with a different action and a different thought.
It's that physical shift that seems so powerful. The body is always in the present moment, right?
Yeah.
While the mind is off in the past or the future.
Exactly. You use the body to pull the mind back to the present. It's the fastest escape route from a thought spiral.
So the application here is to pick one recurring negative emotion you deal with. Maybe it's self-criticism. And then create a specific interrupt plan. When I start feeling self-critical, I will stand up, take 3 deep breaths, and write down one thing I'm grateful for.
The specificity is what makes it work.
Okay, so we've covered recognizing emotions and interrupting the negative spirals. But Meurisse takes it a step further. He moves us from playing defense to playing offense.
Yes, this is where it gets really powerful. It's not just about stopping bad feelings. It's about reframing them as fuel for growth.
Which is lesson 4. Use your emotions to grow.
Exactly. He argues that every strong emotion, no matter how painful, is a high-value signal. It contains this encoded information about a gap between where you are and where you want to be.
So we have to become signal interpreters. He gives some examples, right?
He does. He says intense fear might be a signal that you're avoiding growth, that there's something important just outside your comfort zone.
Okay.
Or persistent frustration. Frustration might be a signal that you're misaligned. Your actions or your environment aren't matching up with your true values.
Even something like jealousy.
Especially jealousy. It's a signal that there's something you desire that you feel you lack. And that can be converted from a toxic feeling into a strategic plan.
It brings us back to that check engine light analogy. If you just ignore the light or put tape over it,
You're heading for a breakdown.
but if you actually look under the hood and see what it's telling you, you can use that information to improve the car's performance in the long run.
Let's use that jealousy example again. It's such a toxic emotion if you just let it sit there. You see a colleague get a big promotion and you feel that intense envy.
The unmanaged response is to brood, maybe even criticize them behind their back.
Right. But the managed response is to harness that signal. You acknowledge the feeling, you label the desire, I want that level of recognition, and then you redirect that energy. You can admire their process and then map out a strategy for your own growth.
So you transmute the toxic feeling into action.
Exactly. So the practice for you is the next time a strong emotion hits, grab a journal and ask, what is this trying to tell me? What positive action is it pointing me toward?
And that leads into the next lesson, which is about building the resilience to handle these signals over time.
Yes, Lesson 5 is all about building emotional resilience through daily practice. Mastery isn't built in big, dramatic moments of crisis. It's built through small, consistent, daily habits.
The marathon analogy he uses is perfect. You don't train for a marathon by just showing up on race day.
No, you train every day. Small runs, stretching, rest, diet. It's the same for emotional mastery.
So resilience isn't about not feeling things.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's the ability to feel things intensely and still choose a thoughtful response. And you build that through the cumulative power of small tools, daily posture checks, simple breathing exercises, small tweaks to your environment.
And over time, the small acts build up this core strength, so when a real challenge hits, you're not starting from zero, you're already centered.
A really practical example he gives is the daily 5-minute intention setting and posture check. First thing in the morning, you just spend 5 minutes standing straight, shoulders back, and setting one single intention for your emotional tone for the day.
It's like a preemptive strike against reactivity.
It is.
Yeah.
So when that client cancels the big contract later in the day, you're just inherently less reactive because you've already centered your physical and mental state.
And this includes other little tools, right? Like grounding techniques.
Yeah, for when you're really overwhelmed, like the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. You name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear. It just forces your runaway mind back into the present moment through your senses.
So the idea is to create a daily 10-minute emotional check-in. Don't wait for a crisis. Just ask yourself at the start of the day, how do I feel? What thoughts are here? What's my posture? What's one small shift I can make right now?
Consistency is the key. It's the emotional gym where you build your strength.
Before we get into the final recap, it's probably worth just synthesizing the bigger concepts that run through the whole book.
Yeah, the scientific context for why this all works. First is the negativity bias. We have to remember, we're not broken for defaulting to negativity. Our brains evolved to prioritize threats.
It's a survival mechanism.
It is. But it means
Okay.
we have to put in deliberate, consistent effort to counteract it. We're fighting millions of years of programming.
And the second big concept is that interpretation identification, a repetition model.
Right. Understanding that a negative emotion isn't random. It's the result of a specific, predictable pattern. And if you know the pattern, you know exactly where to intervene
At the interpretation stage.
immediately. And finally, just internalizing that mind-body-environment triad. Your emotional state is never a mystery. It's always a product of those three inputs.
And if you change one.
You change the whole state. The power is always in your hands.
Okay, this brings us to the most practical part. The power of this book is really in its action steps. So let's run through 10 tips you can start using today.
And he stresses, you don't have to do all 10. Just implementing 2 or 3 of these consistently will start to reshape your response patterns.
Okay, number 1, label the emotion. When you feel it, say, I feel. Whatever it is, never I am.
That's the foundation of everything. Number 2, ask the core question, what triggered me? What belief was active here? This puts you in observer mode instantly.
Number 3, use a short interrupt strategy. When you feel it escalating, stand up, take 3 deep breaths. A rapid physical shift.
Number 4, adjust your physiology. Be mindful of your posture all day. Sit up straight, stand tall. Use your body to tell your mind you're in control.
Number 5, audit your environment this week. Pick one negative influence and just reduce it. Unfollow that toxic account or turn off news alerts for a day.
Number 6, do a 5-minute emotion journal at the end of the day. What was the strongest emotion you felt, and what was its message?
Number 7, choose one emotional growth question. Ask yourself, what is this frustration asking me to learn or to change?
Number 8, practice observer mode. Just for 2 minutes a day, sit quietly and watch your thoughts and feelings pass by like clouds without judgment.
Number 9, accept your feelings. Don't try to push them away. Get curious about them. Ask, what does this feel like in my body right now?
And number 10, share your emotional learning. Talk about what you're discovering with someone you trust. Speaking it out loud makes it real.
That's a great list. Implementing even a few of those would make a huge difference. So to wrap everything up, let's summarize the core wisdom of the book.
Let's start with the top 5 quotes that really capture the message. First, an emotion is only as strong as you allow it to be. This is all about personal agency.
Second, about our interpretation. Your attitude towards life influences your happiness, not what happens to you.
Third, and this is the big reframe, negative emotions can actually be helpful. They're just feedback.
Fourth, I like this one for dealing with other people. You're not responsible for people's thoughts. Your job is to do your best to be your true self.
And finally, the perfect summary of the whole book. Your emotions send you a message, learn as much as you can from them, and then let them go.
And now, the 5 most important lessons, boiled down.
1, label your feelings. I feel, not I am.
2, interrupt the loop. Change your body, your environment, or your thoughts.
3, emotions are signals, not enemies. Use them for growth.
4, daily check-ins build resilience. Small, consistent habits are everything.
And 5, you're the observer, not the emotion. This is where your power to choose comes from.
So master your emotions isn't about forcing yourself to be positive. It's a really practical system for deep self-understanding and intentional action. When you start using these tools, your decision-making gets sharper, your relationships get better, and your resilience it strengthens.
Absolutely. So if you want to shift from feeling like you're in a constant state of chaos to one of confident direction, just start today. Pick one strong emotion you felt this week. Maybe it was frustration, maybe it was self-doubt, and just apply one of the 10 tips, maybe the physical interrupts or asking about the underlying belief, and just notice what changes. Step by step, you'll find your emotional world transforms from a place of fear into a place of fuel.